Today on Reese Dixon, we are making this Halloween countdown calendar. Hi everybody, it's Teresa with ReeseDixon.com. I'm back with another Halloween project and I'm really excited about this one. Today I'm going to be making a Halloween advent calendar. I love advent calendars. I have a whole collection of them for Christmas. Even when I was a kid, I would make paper chains for everything. Even when I wasn't a kid, I would make paper chains for the last day of the semester in college. I don't know what it is. I just love that anticipation and the counting down and having something to like memorialize that. So we're going to do that for Halloween. So this is going to be a pretty traditional advent calendar that you see around Christmas time, just done in a Halloween theme. So what I've got here is a great big piece of this orange flannel, and this is cut to 22 inches this way and 37 inches this way. As for just about any project I make, the measurements I make up as I go. So if you want to make up your own measurements, more power to you. You do it. Okay, so this is a piece of blue felt, and you can do for this backing and what's going to be the bottom, you can do whatever fabric you like. You know, there's so many cute printed cottons. You can use one of those, a quilting cotton or something. I just found this great flannel for cheap, so I used it. But for the top part, you really do want a felt because this is going to stick all of your little trinkets onto it. So you want that texture that the Velcro will cling to. So this piece measures, I have to check my notes, so it's 22 inches wide again, and then 13 inches tall. So the first thing we have to do is sew these two pieces together. So what I've got is I'm going to line up, flip this right side up, and I'll line the two pieces up on one end with the right sides together. And then I'm going to bring this other end of the flannel up and around and sew those pieces like that. Okay? And so once that's in place, what you'll have is this one large orange piece that will make up both the back of the piece and the bottom of the piece that will kind of fold up and over like that. Like that, okay? So then we have to deal with our pockets. So, and basically all of the pieces we're gonna be cutting. So I went and I just went nuts buying felt. And so for the pockets, I made them out of orange felt. These again, you can use out of whatever fabric you want. I just happened to use the felt because I was on a roll. But nothing has to stick to these, so you can use whatever you want. But I like the felt, and I'll explain why in a second. But whatever fabric you end up choosing, you're gonna cut 30 of these squares, and I cut them to, check my notes, they're 2.5 inches wide, 1 3/4 inches tall. And so this works out based on how big I made the whole piece so that you can do five rows of 6 across. So they're a little bit tiny for pockets, so that's important to keep in mind when you're making all of your other pieces. But if you want to make them bigger, you just have to make the backing bigger to accommodate them. And, you know, use your own measurements, as always. So with those cut out, before you sew them on, I wanted to go ahead and put my numbers across the front of it, the 1 to 30 to count down the days. So using more felt, gray this time, I just went to my computer, I found a font that I liked, I printed out the numbers 1 through 30 in a size that would fit onto those squares. So I just like print out a piece of paper, carry it over to my orange square, see if it would fit. And then when I was happy with the size, I print it out again if I needed to. And then I just hold that paper on top of the fabric that I was going to cut out and cut around both pieces. There's so many ways to cut numbers out of fabric now. You know, you can use those fancy die cutting machines, and you can even buy pre-cut numbers, but I like just doing it old school because I can have the most control over it. So that's what I've got here with all these teeny tiny little felt, oh, let me turn it your direction. All these teeny tiny little felt numbers. So I did these out of felt, and I did my pockets out of felt because once you stitch these on, it's like they blend into each other. It's amazing. The felt just like nestles in, all those little fibers just nestle into each other, and it looks gorgeous. So, okay, I've got some work ahead of me. Let me get all of those sewn on, the pockets sewn into place, the two big pieces sewn together, and let me show you up to that point. I want to make sure you can see these pockets because I think they turned out so great. It is a lot of hand sewing. You could probably do some of this on a machine if you were really detail oriented, but I just think it looks so great that it's worth taking the time to do it right. So I sewed all these little pockets on, and two little tricks I discovered as I was doing this that I want to make sure to pass along. One is that I pinned these all into place, and you know, they like to shift around, and I really wanted them straight. So what I did is I took a ruler and a piece of chalk, and I drew a grid on it so that as I was sewing, I could just kind of scooch things to that chalk line and make sure that everything was straight up and down. And then once I had the grid in place, then I could just sew everything like all the way down the line. You know, I'd take a break at the end of each pocket and just scoot it forward, but you don't have to sew on each pocket individually. You can kind of do this whole line and then that whole line, and it went way faster that way. But I kept everything straight because I had that grid line to refer to. The other trick is to reinforce the tops of your pockets by just doing a couple stitches forward, couple stitches back, and then continuing to sew. Because over the years, especially if you have kids doing this, these are going to get a lot of tugging. And so if you have just that extra little bit of reinforcement, it'll keep it nice for as long as you use this. So with all of our main pieces sewn together, now it's time to decorate. So you can do, I mean, anything. That's part of the joy of these little felt seams. You can create whatever you want. I decided to keep it a little simple, and I decided that in each of my pockets we'd have a little piece of candy that you put into the main picture so that by the end of Halloween, when you actually get your candy, you'd have this great little candy-filled vignette. So the first thing I did was I went back to my computer to find some images, and this I just Google image searched for a picture of a cauldron, and I cut this out in the same way I did my numbers. And then once I put that in place, I thought that looked a little too like a leprechaun's pot of gold, so I wanted to make it definitely something a witch would have. So I got some green felt, and I just free-handed this. I cut it long enough so that it was the same size as the cauldron, and then just cut out some little bubbles. And when I sew this in place, what I'm going to do is stitch all the way around the cauldron, but leave this top part open so that I can have some of the candies kind of poking out, give it a little 3D effect that will be cute. And then I'll sew the potion all the way around. So then I cut some circles to make some jack-o'-lanterns, and I just drew these faces on, and I'll sew those down, just hand stitching in the same way. And then I wanted to have it say trick or treat across the top. So same way we did the numbers, I found a font that I liked, the size that I wanted, printed it out on my computer, and then just used that as a pattern to cut out some more orange felt. So I've got these that I will arrange. I think I'm gonna want it to kind of span like that. So I'll have to take my time and you know, make sure that I really get them where I want them and then stitch them in place. So I've got some more hand stitching to do, and then we'll just put a binding on this and it will be done. But while I've got my hand stitching, I wanted to address the little trinkets that need to go in the pockets. So as I mentioned, those are going to be little pieces of candy. So again, anytime I need a pattern, I just go to Google image search and I found myself some little pieces of candy that I could then cut out of felt. So I've got like a couple different versions of wrapped candies here, like that, and I just cut some squares out to make like a little candy bar that I used pinking shears on the sides. And here's a jelly bean and a gumdrop, and you know, you get the idea, just lots of little pieces of candy. And for each one I cut out 2 pieces that I'm going to hand stitch together and put just a little tiny bit of stuffing in there to make it 3D and look like something besides just a shape of felt. I've got some of the loop part of the hook part of the Velcro on here. I used a Velcro that had a sticky back, and I just stuck that on. I'm going to reinforce it with a couple little stitches, but this just helps to keep it from moving around on me. So I've got a ton of hand stitching to do to get all my little pieces ready and in position, and then we'll put a binding on this and hang this baby up. I just went ahead and finished this because putting on a binding is a little bit too complicated to add in one video, but I've already made a video on binding, so let me link that probably right here. And that will teach you how to do the binding. So the stuffing for this, you can use anything you'd use for quilting. I actually did not want it to be super thick, so I used another layer of felt. I used an extra thick layer of felt as my filling, and then I just sewed the batting on around that. And you can see all of my hand stitching turned out great. So now this bad boy is ready to count things down. I've got all my cute little candies here that can slide into my little witch's cauldron, and I love how leaving that open lets you put the candy right inside. And then the rest of them will just have to wait for their days as I fill this out, and Addie's gonna have so much fun pulling these out of the pockets and sticking them onto the cauldron. I just am really thrilled with this project. So I hope that you will be too. I hope you'll give it a try. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. Help me out by sharing this and pinning it and sending it to all your friends. I would love you forever for that. Don't forget to subscribe so you get to see all the rest of my big ideas, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.